Afternoon, everyone. Today is May 4th, 2020. The time is 2:05 p.m. This is a special meeting to continue our fiscal year 21 budget review with our prosecutor, Barry McHugh. Attending are Commissioners Duncan, Brooks, and Filios. Do we have any changes to the agenda? Hearing none. Barry, take it away, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'll start with the B budget, and I know you have the summary because I put it up there in front of you.
Right.
The only changes with regards to the four divisions that I have primarily relates to expert witness cost estimates that I was asked to put in there by Commissioner Duncan, just to kind of get a sense for what those might be. And so historically there's been a little bit of a back and forth as to whether or not to try to estimate and put it into the budget with regards to those expert witness fees. But you'll see in the civil side, which is the $30,000 in the first line, that relates to the Renfro post-conviction case, which is a civil case and will be handled primarily out of the civil division. And so we anticipate that there will be some significant expert witness fees in that case, and we've estimated at $30,000 next fiscal year. The petition is due to be filed in August of this year. Now, I can't really predict what the whole virus situation is going to do with regards to deadlines, but nothing's changed, and so I'm anticipating that we will see the petition, we will see the claims that they're making, and we will be able to identify in some regard where we're going to need expert witnesses, even before we see their expert witness disclosures. And so trying to anticipate, it is a best guess, as is the figure in the criminal division. The $40,000 is primarily in the Eisenberg case. There is one other case that is going to have some expert witness fees, but again, we're trying to do a best estimate of what we anticipate might be incurred. The Eisenberg case has some experts that we've already identified that some of whom have testified at the grand jury. We anticipate that, with any luck, we'll be able to get that trial started and completed in the next fiscal year. And so whether the commissioners, whether you decide to do it this way or put the money aside in a more flexible account, that's of course up to the commissioner's discretion, but I wanted to kind of explain those costs. And other than that, really the only out of the allowed budget that we were provided is a door for human resources, and that's that 2268 that you see in there. So we move money around. I always try to, if I have increases, and we do have increases, when we add an attorney, there's IPAA, the Prosecutors Association, there's Westlaw license, Justware license that we need to secure, and so there's always some onboarding costs. But this year I tried to, in terms of positions that we have that the board approved earlier this year, I moved money around, whether it's the 2% or savings in other line items, in order to be able to cover those costs, including moving about a little over $1,000 from the criminal division budget to civil to cover those costs. So we've tried to use the 2% money that the board gave us to cover costs that are well and above 2%, but in order to come in at what the board was recommending that we do, absent these, I guess it would be expert witnesses and a door and some onboarding costs. So any questions about the B budget costs that I've been discussing?
Just help me figure out, is the door just this one right here, or we're going to build a door somewhere?
It would be a door. You know how you walk down the hallway past CK towards Sylvia's office?
Yes.
They would put a door through there out into that hallway that is an exit. Right now, if if they were to have a situation, they wouldn't have a way to get out. And it's a security thing. I think really appreciate Building and Grounds putting in the secure door with the releases and all that. I know they feel a lot better about, not being exposed to anybody who's walking down the hall necessarily. But that additional exit opportunity, I think, would give them even more sense of security.
Bill, any questions?
None.
So Barry, when we, in reference to the 40K witness payments, obviously that's an estimate.
Yes.
Yeah. Any ideas to, would that go into our contingency under the auspices of the BOCC? Where do you see us allocating that money?
That's always been up to the commissioners. I don't really care because I've never had a situation where you've put funds into contingency, and then I've come back and the commissioners have said, no, we're not going to give you money now. So that has worked really well for me because this board and other boards have always been cognizant of the reality that most of the time we're using experts in response to defense experts. This is not necessarily the case in Eisenberg, but it hasn't really mattered where that money was placed. And if you want to put it in contingency, I'm 100% okay with that.
Okay.
Dina, is there a,
That's also good.
yeah,
Where do we stand with, go ahead.
Statutorily, if we anticipate that there's going to be expenses, we want to budget those appropriately. And then if we go over beyond that, because the nature of the prosecutor is that he surprises, especially when experts tend to do it in contingency. So if there's an anticipated increase on known cases, we want to budget those in his budget.
In his budget, okay, okay.
I think the challenge in the past has been how do you anticipate these types of costs year to year, and it can be a challenge. But these are based on cases that are ongoing and existing, and that we can put an estimated number to. So it's a little bit different from prior years where you go into it not knowing what's going to happen, and then you have a first-degree murder case with some challenging issues, and it's money that's just not there budgeted.
So the 30K witness, excuse me, in the Renfro situation, this is what, post-sentencing, isn't it?
Yeah, post-conviction review case. So it's a civil case that is filed looking for issues in the underlying criminal case that the SAPD can look at, raise, and litigate. It can be things that the court did that maybe weren't appropriate, or things that my office did, or things that trial counsel did that they should have done differently that can raise claims for remedies ranging from new trial to new sentencing to outright dismissal based on really egregious conduct somewhere.
right, two questions. First of all, this is just for death penalty cases, right?
Post-conviction arises in every felony case.
Okay.
Oh.
It's just, the unusual part about a death penalty case is that the post-conviction happens first. There's not a direct appeal, which is usually what happens, and then post-conviction. In a death penalty case, they're flip-flopped in order to try to get the post-conviction relief case litigated and resolved to the extent that it can be.
How often do one of these cases find something that needs to be remedied?
Very rare. Very rare.
Okay. When we paid, during this, not the sentencing, I'm sorry, during the trial, when we enlisted Dr. Weller, you had no way of forecasting that, did you? Or did we?
Forecasting what?
What it
Cost?
was going to cost us, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you could from the perspective that he had a high hourly rate and that it was a complicated case and he was handling the, I don't want to say the bulk, but a great deal of the issues that came up. I don't know how many defense experts he was able to respond to, but it was, I would say, at least a handful because of his expertise, not only as a physician, but then we had pharmacological pharmacological issues come up that in the middle of trial that we were fortunate enough to have him, you know, available to respond to while he was out here, you know, testifying and for other things. So I think that it was a known that he was going to be expensive.
But it was still outside of budget, though. I mean, you didn't know
Yeah,
how
you couldn't have.
expensive he was going to be
No.
while you were doing your budget, right? So.
Oh,
so-
for sure.
Right, so knowing that these things are coming up, that's why I feel comfortable putting them right in your budget to be transparent to the taxpayer, saying, hey, this is how much this trial is looking to cost you.
Yeah, yeah, and I, Barbara Hare, my criminal chief, is here, and we spoke about, you know, the Eisenberg case. He's identified the experts. You know, may we need more? Maybe, depends on what the defense comes up with, but we have ours identified. We know what the rates are. We know what's left to be done. So we're able to put a decent figure on that particular case.
Bill, any questions?
Nope, no questions.
For the benefit of everyone, well, probably not just in the room, but anybody that might be listening in, Dr. Weller was, what was he, a forensic psychiatrist?
Right, psychiatrist. Yeah.
Forensic
Well known.
psychiatrist?
Yeah.
And the cost, if my memory serves me right, was $260,000.
It was right around there.
Yeah, okay. Anything else? No?
A budget?
Did you want to go over your BEA budget?
Sure. So, as the board is aware, last year I asked for 2 attorneys and a legal secretary. I came back earlier this year, asked for them again. The board did not give me those positions. And they were based on increases in the caseload that we saw from 2018 to 2019 of approximately 20%. And when you look at the number of attorneys we had working felony cases, that increase matched up pretty fairly with the 20% increase in resources. And so, you know, I'm asking for that again. I think it's reasonable based on the amount of work that is out there that I anticipate. To be fair, this year is going to be down. Now we're going to probably ramp up, but the reality is the stay-at-home order keeps people off the street in some regard, and so our numbers have been kind of up and down, but generally down. And so I can't say that right now we need you know, the increase in resources, and until the courts ramp back up, we're starting to see that now. But I'm also anticipating then when we start having jury trials in August, which is what the schedule is, we are going to be absolutely slammed. And so between August and the end of the year, you know, I anticipate that we're going to be going, you know, really hard, nonstop. The judges are all going to be in the same place. I don't know if Carlene talked about that or not, but it's just everything's backing up. And when you're doing things, holding hearings remotely, whether it's by telephone or Zoom, it's just slower. And so you go to a magistrate's first appearance calendar or pretrial calendar, and they are going like this. I mean, they go fast, and when you have to break after every hearing and make a new phone call and get everybody involved, or have an evidentiary hearing like we're doing right now where you have a witness testifying remotely, it just takes longer. And so that means that things are going to get backed up. I know the judges are going to start trying to clear that backlog, and I think we saw that, we're seeing that even this week. But the reality is, until we get back to the point where people can come into court and do things in a manner consistent with what we've seen in the past, it's just going to be slower, and then it's going to be really busy. And so, you know, I provided the board with a couple documents that I know was prepared back last month when the public defender was coming to ask for some AT shifts, and I just wanted to point out that I don't think that the numbers are quite right for my office. I think part of it is that we had part of it is I think the request for the information was made right before the hearing, and so there may have been some haste in preparing it, but part of it was we have 2, if you remember, we split a position, and I think those 2 are reflected as 2 FTEs rather than 1, and I think that our actual number of attorneys is 23 or 21 FTEs. And then if you compare, if you look at The AT4s and 5s, as they are now, we've got 4. The public defender has 13 AT4s and 5s handling felony cases. I think, and the reality is the AT schedule hasn't changed. AT3s are felony positions. They can be misdemeanors too, but the AT3 positions I'm asking for are to do felony work. And so we're still going to be at a disparity in terms of the number of positions at 4s and 5s. And I understand that it's been made very clear to me that I don't necessarily get what Ann gets, but there's a point at which I think it does become a disparity worth taking note of, and I think we're at that point.
Okay.
Have you seen an increase in these motions just in the last 6 months?
Yeah, I know I talked to Art about one of his cases that I think Ann Taylor is handling on her own, and I know he noted that there were 5 or 6 motions filed. And his perspective in reviewing those motions is, this is a young attorney, so when you see 10 AT or 11 AT2 attorneys, that's what they're doing in some regard, is they're briefing cases for the felony attorneys, providing more work that we have to respond to at the felony level. And granted, I'm sure that they're doing a lot of work at the misdemeanor level as well, but we have 6, and usually we have 5 attorneys handling our misdemeanor work, and so to see 11, I would question whether there's that much work for 82 attorneys.
So can you just, if we have to make cuts, can you prioritize your 3 positions?
So let me start with the idea that the market hasn't changed, and so what I've experienced is that it's difficult. I mean, we've struggled a little bit. We've been lucky to get good people, but at the same time, the number of applicants has been down. And so what I would say is if you were going to stagger it, if that would help at all, I would say let's hire an attorney at the beginning of the fiscal year, a second attorney 3 months later, and a support staff person 3 months after that. So I would stagger it that way. We would be able to, the support staff person that the board authorized here a few months ago would be able to handle a second attorney and maybe a third attorney. And so that's the way I would do it. And I guess I would, if I was going to prioritize it in terms of am I getting it or not, I would do it the same way. But hopefully it won't come to that.
Okay. Bill, anything?
Fine.
Leslie, you okay?
I'm good.
Anyone else? I'm good too. Public comment? None? 2:24, meeting adjourned. Thank you, Barry.
Thank you, Commissioners.